Hi everyone, I'm ImJenPass. Did you hear about the news? Releasing mediocre products at high prices is the new trend everyone is following. Just look at these examples. Oh look, that's a topic for today. The Nintendo Switch 2, Nintendo's 8th home console. Technically 10th, if we count the Color TV game and the Virtual Boy. But who wants to say they genuinely produced the Virtual Boy? They don't. And their 9th handheld console, making it now a total of 17 game consoles including the rejects. I just realized, Nintendo has made more of this than this. Huh. But anyways, the Nintendo Switch 2 is a pretty big deal, the successor of Nintendo's best-selling console, and second best-selling hardware overall. The hybrid experiment still continues stronger than ever, still being the only video game console of its type. But before I continue babbling about the Nintendo Switch 2, I am conscious of the Steam Deck's existence. At the end of the day, I own one. But according to Valve, the Steam Deck is a PC gaming device and not a video game console. Which is like saying that a comic book and a manga are different things. They both use pictures for the story and all of that, they have words, but one is read left to right and the other right to left. So they're basically completely separate forms of media. That sounds dumb, right? Well, that's basically what Valve is saying about the Steam Deck. But therefore, my point still stands. The Nintendo Switch came out in 2017 with an enormous positive response. It was a big thing. Play your games at home and on the go, with AAA experiences everywhere. We got masterpieces like Super Mario Odyssey, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and all of that by Nintendo in the same year. That same year, games like Mario Plus Rabbids won to Switch, the big Skyrim, Minecraft, Stardew Valley, Xenoblade Chronicles 2. To say that the first year of the Nintendo Switch was a bad year would be to say a straight up lie. And also including that in its lifespan, games like Animal Crossing, Super Smash Bros, Tears of the Kingdom, Metroid Dread, Super Mario Wonder, and a bunch more that I have forgot to mention, it is clear, at least to me, that the Nintendo Switch gave us the best experience of the generation. But there were problems. The Nintendo Switch came out way too early or way too late. The technology at the time was advancing at a rapid rate. The graphical expectations were increasing dramatically thanks to what the competition was pumping out at the time. While the technology was there, Nintendo couldn't produce a high-end tech console and give a fair price at the same time, making the Switch obsolete in the graphics sense very fast. And this is more obvious with two of the best games of the console, I'll say the best games of the respective decades. The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom. Two fantastic games! Damn, even Breath of the Wild was a launch title, and a fantastic one at that. But even with the new hardware and the game made specifically for this console, the Switch struggled with one area of the game, struggling to keep a stable 30 FPS, which even by that time it was really low, and with the sequel the game struggled a lot, having a ton of moments where it was difficult to keep a smooth gameplay. It was obvious that even in the infancy, the Nintendo Switch couldn't keep up with the industry necessities. And while they made their games with the limits in mind, it was clear by the end of this lifespan and the possibility of something new, that Nintendo's developers were also looking to break out of the limits of the Switch's hardware. Nintendo Switch Pro is the name everyone was throwing around, a revision model with more powerful graphics, like the new 3DS to the 3DS or the PS4 Pro to the PS4. This revision model was asked by the people as early as 2019, only 2 years after the original console's release, showing how even in its prime, people considered the graphics to be subpar the standard, with rumors and supposed leaks being relevant since 2021. And while I don't want to focus so much on leaks this time, I tell you about it because of the events that transpired at the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2025. I'm gonna be pretty brief in this part talking about the Nintendo leaks, but I do want to comment that by December of 2024 we already knew everything about the hardware. By the end of the year, everyone had announced the Nintendo Switch 2 except for Nintendo itself. In December 2nd, a video came out to the Chinese video sharing platform Bilibili. Talks and shows the supposed console, showing a magnetic version of the Joy-Cons, the size of the screen, and basically all the secrets. The video's authenticity was highly debated, but all that ended with the CES 2025, which is a trade show like the late E3, where a company was showing their new protector cases for the console, using a dummy console but still showing the whole outline of the console, also showing the Joy-Cons, and by January of 2025, everyone knew all there was about the console physically. So Nintendo begrudgingly had to say something. On the 16th of January, people woke up with a teaser by Nintendo, confirming the existence of the Nintendo Switch 2, its design, and also set that date for the Nintendo Direct, showing and explaining fully the console. The Nintendo Direct came and went, with the console being announced for June 5th. Everyone loved the Direct. With all the information they showed, it was wonderful. The console looked perfect. And then they showed the prices. It happened 2 months ago and it hasn't gotten better since. But too much talking about other topics. Let's finally talk about what we all came here for, the Nintendo Switch 2. The Nintendo Switch 2. How even can I start talking about this console? First, the unboxing was really clean, honestly. It shows you what you want first, the console and the Joy-Cons, and the rest second. Of course, I can imagine with a packaging like that, it's focused on a little kid excited on Christmas night, opening and immediately grabbing the console, having the rest as a secondary thing. The console itself is pretty big, being the same height as the Steam Deck, with a bigger screen. Of course, because of that, the Joy-Cons are pretty big enough that it feels comfortably in my hand. The OG Joy-Cons are really small, and sometimes can be weird to hold them for extensive game sessions, in my opinion of course. The bigger console gives, from my perspective, a better grip, and is overall the perfect handheld console compared to its predecessor. But a console is not only great in its aesthetics, but it's great in its power. That's perfect, because the Nintendo Switch 2 is pretty powerful, having a 1080p screen with beautiful HDR, making the colors pop in an amazing way. Of course, there's a downside that it's LCD screen and not an OLED screen, but in my personal experience, it isn't that much of a problem. Of course, there's people that don't like this decision and were hoping for an OLED screen right from the get-go, but I don't really see the issue. Of course that I get why it is a shift move by Nintendo, but it doesn't really harm my experience with the console. With a customized chip by Nvidia, with
the most advanced graphics ever in a mobile device, full hardware ray tracing, high dynamic range for brighter highlights and deeper shadows, and an architecture that supports backward compatibility. Dedicated AI processors to sharpen, animate, and enhance gameplay in real time.
And with a closer examination, the graphics power of the Nintendo Switch 2 are comparable to an Xbox Series S. So the console is pretty good in terms of graphical power. Also with the new dock, it can output to a 4K resolution, and docked or in handheld mode, the Switch can perform up to 60 to 120 stable FPS in a lot of games. Unless the game itself is capped to another resolution like some Nintendo Switch games or Cyberpunk, but I'll talk about that later. Okay, time to talk about the meat of the console, the games. Because believe it or not, the Nintendo Switch 2 has games, and it launched with 22 of those, without counting the whole Switch 1 library. But in my opinion, there was a game that people were most excited about starting, a game that not only convinced me, but convinced everyone into buying the Nintendo Switch 2. Of course, I'm talking about none other than the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. Okay, hear me out. I know $10 for a game that should have been a packing title sounds outrageous, but if you do buy it and play it, you will finally realize you wasted $10 whole dollars. Let's not indulge too much. Charging $10 for a tech demo, it's a really cheaty move by Nintendo. The game has no personality other than just trying to sell you the console you already own. But I would admit, I do like the minigames they offer. It's arcade based, so it can become pretty addictive if you're not timing yourself. And you'll say, hey ImJenPass, if you already knew this game wasn't worth it, why did you buy it? That's an amazing question, and the answer is pretty simple. Nintendo injected a shit into my brain. I can see a Nintendo product because my brain is now hardwired into buying whatever it is. This is not a joke. I'm more than $12,000 in debt, and the games are not that good. If you want to help me, please call now. Mario Kart World is the 9th game in the mainline Mario Kart series, a revolutionary step forward for the franchise and the perfect first game for the Nintendo Switch 2. That's it. I talk about Mario Kart World. I'm joking, but you're just saying that sums up the game pretty well. Another Mario Kart that's perfect for the Switch 2. And while it may be a disservice for this magnum opus of a game, you can say this to anyone, and because it's Mario Kart, they'll probably buy the new one and the new console. But the new Mario Kart World is not just the new one, it's a whole different experience. A semi-open world focus on giving the experience not only of riding the normal Mario Kart courses, but also giving the experience of going to them, connecting all of these parts of the world as logically as possible. This game is so good and so extensive to talk about here, but I swear sooner or later I'll make a video about it, so I can talk freely about how amazing this game is. One of the new things with this console is the controversial Nintendo Switch 2 editions. Taking a page from Sony's book, Nintendo is charging an extra $10 to $20 for new DLC and a new coat of paint to all Switch games. The games with this strategy are Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and Mario Party Jamboree. The last two coming with an extra DLC and the Zelda games becoming compatible with the phone app. The other popular games on the Switch are amazingly getting a free update, which is like the minimum, you know, but it's nice that I don't have to spend $10 for every Nintendo game that I owned before, but I'll continue that topic later. For now, I want to talk about the Nintendo Switch 2 editions of the Zelda game. These updates are available with the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, which is nice and makes the Switch Online subscription more worth it. But with the new version of this game, you expect greatness, no longer bound by the limitation of the previous generations. Two of the greatest games of all time, now limitless in their potential. Or that is the expectation that I had while downloading the update. Did I achieve that wild expectation? Yes! The game looks and runs amazing! Well, of course, people will look at it from afar and say,
¡Es igual! ¡Es igual! ¡Woo!
once you got it on your hands, the game feels fresh, and personally, I don't know if the update is that good or I'm just enamored by the Nintendo Switch 2, but I want to explore Hyrule again, explore its land and mysteries, to then explore the sky and below. I fully recommend upgrading to the Nintendo Switch 2 editions of these games, but only if you already have the original games and are planning to buy the Switch Online Plus expansion pack, because to be honest, while excellent upgrades, doesn't justify paying $30 total for them, just yet. But in the topic of re-releases, CD Projekt Red released Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition as a launch title on the Nintendo Switch 2, and it's an amazing port. The game actually looks amazing. Of course, it isn't as good looking as at the big consoles, but it doesn't have to. It just needs to look good enough and run without any issues, and there really isn't any issue. It comes with some new motion controls that, while weird, it's fun and it gives you the opportunity to play the game in a whole new different way. Having both options available really enhances the experience. While of course, the game does stutter a bit when loading new areas, it's not enough to break the immersion. I'll personally say that the game runs as well as it does in my own personal PC, and that while that may say more about my PC than the Switch 2, I can say that in my own experience, the Nintendo Switch 2 runs Cyberpunk 2077 more smoothly than the Steam Deck. And while both are incredible portable systems, this with the motion controls and the 4K support makes the best way to play the game in a portable device to be the new Nintendo Switch 2. I'll say even being a must-buy for people that are interested in the title. To keep this part short, the Nintendo Switch 2 can run perfectly almost every Nintendo Switch game without an update, locking the frame rates to do either 30 or 60 FPS, depending on how the original game locked their frame rate. But even then, it assures you that there'll be no slowdowns and that feature just came out of the box. It's amazing to have. An amazing thing to have to be able to sell your Switch 1 games without saying goodbye to the multiple games you got for it. And talking about the games from the past, Nintendo Switch Online retro games. The reason you should even be thinking about buying a subscription to this platform. From the original NES to now the all-new GameCube, having more than 2/3 of Nintendo's legacy on this console, we are presented with this new era of Nintendo with 3 games. Soul Calibur, The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, and F-Zero GX. 3 amazing and totally different games, a fighting game, an adventure game, and a racing game, so that everyone has something to play. From my experience, the emulation is good. It looks crisp, it runs smoothly, it's great. Also, the Rhyme feature came to this and the Nintendo 64 emulator, and while I know this may be controversial opinion, I'm glad they added this feature. Gonna make revisiting these games easier. A week and a half has gone by since the Nintendo Switch 2 release, and I will confidently say that the console has a bright future ahead. What I have been able to play has shown the possibilities it has, and is giving a first stand from Nintendo that now they have a format that works universally, borrowing aspects from their previous experiments and now they can focus on making a more powerful console graphics wise and compete with the new generation's demands. And while I'm not a fan of the new prices, I'll say that the video games that have been released and the games that will release will give you experiences you will never forget. But of course, you can always, and I recommend this for the majority of the games, wait for a discount or buy it from a second source or something like that. And while Nintendo themselves may not give a lot of discounts, like I said before, some local businesses or second-hand products. Since the moment this console was announced, I saw it as the opportunity to be the ultimate Nintendo console, having every generation available from the NES to possibly the Wii in a not so far future. And with the highlights of the Wii U ported to the original Switch, there's a possibility that we can have every major Nintendo experience in one place. The graphical potential of this console gives one hope that we can get bigger experiences and more third-party support coming to the system. While I don't want Nintendo to make realistic games, I do hope they use the new power of the console to continue making the games they like to do with the freedom of a powerful console can give. And while third-party support has been really absent in Nintendo consoles since the Nintendo 64 days due to Nintendo's inability to keep up with the technological advances, now we have something that can match the current generation. And for what Nintendo has this, third-party support is in the front of their plans. I mean, is there something this console can do wrong?